Okay, so let's get started. We'll use Hoboken to generate the project. We're going to call it GitScore, a modular app, and use Git. Okay, let's make sure our tests pass. Good. I'm going to use tmux. Start up a new tmux session. And we're going to create a new window for server, the rake task, and then this window over here for our code. So let's go check out Chrome and make sure our server is running, and it is. Okay, so now we can get started. So let's open up app test, and we're going to test outside in. So the first test we want to write is to make sure that if we get the username that we get back a profile. So I'm going to use my GitHub username. We want to assert that the response is okay. And then we also want to assert that the body contains my GitHub username. And we also want to make sure that it my name. Run this test, it's going to fail. 404 not found. So let's open up our app, RB, and add a route. Something like this. Run our test again. Okay, expected body to contain my username, but it's not there. So one of the things we need to do is talk to GitHub. In this test, it's probably going to use some type of adapter to talk to GitHub, but I don't want to worry about it in this test, so I'm just going to make a fake one. And that fake one, I'm thinking they'll have a method, fetch profile, and it'll take a username, and that's going to return some type of object, maybe a user profile object. I don't know what it's going to be yet. But I do know that we want it to have an attribute for the username and the name of the user. Okay. And then we need some way of letting our Sinatra app know about the fake GitHub, so we're going to use Sinatra settings. So we have app set, and then we'll just call it GitHub. And we're going to pass it our fake, a new instances of our fake GitHub. So now if we run this test, we shouldn't get any errors. We should get the same failure, which we do, good. And then we can come back over here and we can implement this. So we can use the Sinatra settings that we set up. We grab the GitHub object, fetch profile, and we're going to use params username. And then we're going to render the profile template. This test. Now this should fail because it can't find the view. Actually, it doesn't know what fake GitHub user profile is, right? Because we haven't defined that. So I think what we're going to do is this user profile right now. It's just we know it's going to be a domain object. So we're going to have an app folder, and in that app folder, we'll have something called user profile. Now I could go off and TDD this class, but I don't know if it's actually going to be a class or if it's just going to be a struct, or kind of what it's going to be right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the file in the right folder, and for now we know we'll probably want it to live in some type of module. We'll call it GitScore, and then I'm just going to make it a struct. And it's going to have a username and a name, and then it's also going to need an initialize method. And then that initialize method is just going to take some keyword arguments, attributes. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to loop through them and then key and value. And then we're just going to say assign each one like that. Okay, so now we have our user profile. Again, we haven't strictly TDD'd it, but it's needed by the fake GitHub class. And as we start to flesh it out later, we'll start probably to add more tests for it. But right now, it's just a simple struct with an initialize method on it. So I think it's okay. So now we run our test again, and don't have fake user profile. Okay, fake user profile. Oh, and that's because now this is namespaced under the GitScore namespace. Run the test again. Okay, now we don't have our profile ERB file, which is what we were looking for. So we'll go back into views, profile ERV, and then run our tests. And now we're back to our failure because it doesn't have the username or the name. So let's open up profile ERB. And what we're going to do is we're going to have, I guess, a heading. And that's going to have the profile username. And then we'll also have another, we'll have a smaller heading that has the just the plain name on it. And like that. So now we run our tests again, and the test pass. Okay, so with that test passing, now the next thing we probably want to do is make a flesh out what our real GitHub implementation is going to look like with its fetch profile. That way we can have a full round trip example of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to make an integration test for our GitHub adapter. And we're going to need to require our test helper. And it's going to live in the GitScore module, and there'll be another adapters module, and then we'll have our GitHub class, and the test will be in the same, under the same namespace. So the first test we want to write is for this fetch profile. And what that's going to look like is we're going to have our GitHub class, and we're going to initialize one. And then we're going to call fetch profile on it. And I'll just use my username again. And actually, that's going to be fetch profile. And then we want to assert that my username is on the profile object that we get back. And also same thing for my name. Let me run this. And it fails because we don't have GitHub set up, our adapter class. So in app, we don't have an adapters folder. So let's make one. Okay. And then in app adapters folder, we're going to have a GitHub RB adapter. And again, we already know that's going to live in the GitScore module. And then we'll have adapters and then GitHub class. Okay. And then we need to require this file in here. Okay, and that fails because it doesn't have the fetch profile method. So we know that looks like that. It's going to take a username. And now we get back into a class and doesn't know what username is. So I'm going to use HTTP party to make the request to GitHub. So let's open up our gem file and add that to our list of dependencies. And I happen to know that the latest version is 0.13.0. And I'm going to run a bundle install. I think I already have it, but just to be safe. Okay. So now we're going to use HTTP party, and we're going to make a request to github.com, and it's going to have our username.json, and we're going to get a response back. Let's take a quick look in the browser what that actually looks like. So if I go to github.com with my username, this is the JSON that we get back. It's not very readable. Let's look at it in the network tab. So it comes back as an array of events. Right now, the things we care about, we're just going to pull off the first event, the information that we need. So we need the actor, and then under actor attributes, we need the name. So we're going to come back over here and do that. Now, the other thing is the response that comes back, it's JSON, but it comes back as a JSON string, so we're going to have to parse that. So we're going to parse the response body, we get the data back, and then we can make a new user profile that is going to have a username, and we're going to look at the first item in the data, and we're going to get the actor attribute off of it. And then for name, again, first one, and then it will be actor attributes off from that, and then we want okay, and then with that set up, the other thing we need to do is now we're using user profile in here, so we need to require that. If we run our test, oh, it doesn't know what HTTP party is. Let's require that in here as well. Our test. Oh, I misspelled response. Where is that? Oh, right here. There we go. We run our test and it passes. Okay. So now, if I'm not mistaken, if we run all our tests, I think they all will pass, and they do. Okay. So let's take a look in the browser what this looks like. So the first thing we need to do, though, is in the rackup file, we need to assign our app to a variable, because what we need to tell it is we need to set the real instance of GitHub. And that's going to be GitScore adapters GitHub new, and then we can run our app. And then the other thing we need to do is these things that we require here, we're going to need to also require them in AppRB. So let's add that here. With that in place, I think if we go to our server, let's restart it because we changed the rackup file. Oh, can't load such file. Adapters GitHub. Oh, because I think the require relative. It's not the right. Yeah. So this actually needs to be just this. Actually, we don't need the slashes either. Okay. So I can try to run our server again. It starts up, and then if we go back to Chrome, let's close this, and then if we go to here, we see our username, and let's try it with another username. I'll use one of my friends. Let's try another one. There we go. Okay. I think that's going to be it for right now. And then next screencast, we'll work on the scoring model.